Okay, let's look at tutorial 5. This is also still discussing the denominator in linear factor form. But look at example 4. The denominator doesn't look like linear, it is quadratic because the highest power is x power 2. Even though the denominator is quadratic, make sure that this quadratic can be factorized or can't be factorized. If this quadratic can be factorized, then we can just solve it by using the method that we have learned in tutorial 4, which is by solving linear factors denominator. But if, let's say, this quadratic denominator cannot be factorized, then we have to use your knowledge from tutorial 8 to solve that type of question. Now, look at your denominator. So this is 1 minus x squared. You can just press your calculator, or you can also factorize this by using the formula a squared minus b squared equal to a minus b times a plus b. So since our a here is 1, so you can just write 1, and then your b is equal to x, so just write behind x, and in the middle, according to the formula, 1 is plus and 1 is minus. So you can factorize this quadratic expression. So change from quadratic form into linear factors, two linear factors. So this is just like solving in tutorial 4. So there are two factors, so that means we have only two fractions. So the first fraction would be consisting of the first factor. The second fraction will have the second factor. And remember, what will be the numerator? The numerator would be 1 degree less than the denominator. So since the denominator is linear, x power 1 here, so the numerator must be constant. So it's just a and b. Next step, remember, we have to compare the numerators. But to compare the numerators, you have to make sure the denominator are the same. And how to do that? We just have to multiply a with the other fraction. So you don't have to look at the denominator for a, just focus on the denominator of the other fraction and multiply it with a. So it is just 1 plus x. And next for b, we also can ignore the denominator below b and then just look at the denominator for the fraction beside it and just multiply that denominator with b. So this is just 1 minus x. So now the other numerator is on the left hand side, which is x. Okay, from this step, I can simply choose the best choice of x value. So the first choice can be 1 minus x equal to 0, x equal to 1. So you can substitute x equal to 1 into your workings. So this is just a, 1 plus 1, plus b, 1 minus 1. Make sure only one constant term is left. So 1 minus 1 is 0, and you're left with 1 plus 1. So this is just 2a equal to 1, so a is equal to 1 over 2. Next, to find b, we can just substitute the other factor, which is x plus 1. 1 plus x equal to 0, x is equal to negative 1. So substitute in x equal to negative 1 into the formula highlighted by green here. Okay, so just negative 1 equal to a times 1 minus 1 plus b, 1 minus negative 1. So 1 minus 1 is just 0, so you're left with 1 plus 1. So this is 2b equal to negative 1, b is equal to negative 1 over 2. And remember, your final answer must be in partial fractions, so you have to write down your final answer in these two separated fractions. You can write down the original question and then write down the denominator below of a and also below of b, and then just substitute in your values of a on top. But remember, since this is a fraction, so you have to write 1 on top but 2 below. And also the same for b. There's a negative sign there, so negative times positive is just negative, so I'm going to change this positive sign to negative. So it's negative 1 here, and then 2 will be with the denominator. So that's your final answer. You can just leave it like that. Try out example 5. First step is to make sure this quadratic can be factorized or not. So if it can be factorized, you can use the same method as in example 4. Also the same for example 6. Check whether this denominator can be factorized or not. Now, example 7. The numerator for example 7 is quadratic, and denominator for example 7, if we expand this x, is actually cubic. Don't worry, we just have to follow the same steps, which is, first step, look at the denominator. Make sure this quadratic expression can be factorized. So check whether you can factorize that quadratic or not. After pressing your calculator, you can find that you can factorize 3x squared plus 10x plus 3, and it's just 3x plus 1 times x plus 3. So you can factorize that quadratic expression. So this means write x in front. So this new fraction has linear factors as its denominator. So you can just apply the same method in tutorial 4 and also in tutorial 5 to solve this question. It's just that the numerator is quadratic, but the same steps apply. I will give you a hint and then you can try this out yourself. So since we have 3 factors, so that means we have 3 fractions. And what will be the denominator for the first fraction is the first factor, x. The next factor is 3x plus 1. And the last factor is x plus 3. Separate them into 3 different fractions. And remember, what would be your numerator on top of each of the fractions is 1 degree less than the denominator. So since all of these denominators are linear x power 1, so the numerator must be constant. The easiest constant that we can label is ABC. Remember, the next step is to equalize the denominator. So you have to multiply a with the other 2 linear factors, like that, next to a. And then for b, also ignoring the denominator under b and multiply b with the other 2 denominators as shown. And then for c, just ignore the denominator under c and multiply c with the other 2 denominators. Now your numerator for the right hand side is done. Just write down the numerator for the left hand side. So now you can just compare the numerators. Next step is to find the x values. Remember, to find the x values, just look at the factor one by one. So this means you substitute in x0. The next value of x that you can substitute is negative 1 over 3. And the last is x equal to negative 3. Try to solve this question and then we will discuss the answers in the next tutorials. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.